First off, could you introduce yourself, please, Mike, and what your role is?
I'm Mike McGowan. I work at Campion School and Language College in Northampton. I'm assistant head teacher, raising standards Key Stage 4, but my main responsibility with regard to PEXI is that I'm also in charge of the catch-up programme.
So first off, how would you describe PEXI's communication in the initial setup of the tuition programme?
This is the second year that we've done. We've used PEXI to deliver our national tutoring programme. Last year, Liz was responsible, so you know very well, Bob.
Yeah.
But I took it on this year as Liz has moved on. I found it very straightforward. I know we built quite a strong relationship last year, Bob, but even though I wasn't responsible, I was very much in on all of the conversations. Me and Liz worked together, so it made it very easy to kind of join you again as partners. The communication with Joanna by email mainly has been excellent. We've had a couple of issues where we've had the odd member of staff who's been ill, and we've found out pretty quickly, and there's been solutions that have been applied pretty quickly to any problems that we've had. So we have no qualms at our end in terms of the communication from PEXI. It's been pretty good as we would expect from an organisation that we're working with on a professional level from outside of school.
Mike, and the next bit is about our workbooks, our teaching resources. Yeah. So what do you think of those? Have you had any feedback from yourself or from colleagues about our teaching resources?
Well, obviously we work very closely with our maths and English team. We use PEXI to deliver English and maths tuition, catch-up tuition to years 8 to 11. Going back to the previous question, the communication element of that was good, because there is a menu of resources that we can use. These resources were shared with us by Bob and Joanna. We then passed these on to our head of English and maths, who then identified the correct resources that would support the students that we'd selected for the catch-up programme. Their resources support the teaching, but they're not just there to be used. So they're not kind of didactically used by the teachers. I think the tutors are flexible enough to also, and intuitive enough to also understand that some of our students might need different things. So they use the books as a guide, but they don't stick completely to them. But I do think they provide a really good resource for the students, because lots of students work well with booklets, don't they? They need that kind of focus within their sessions, and it gives them something to achieve. They can see that there's a structure and that is being applied, and there's a purpose to what they're doing. And they also provide us with so they link very well with the testing that comes at the start, the midpoint, and at the end. So I think they're a very useful resource.
Oh, that's times perfect, actually, because that was the next thing I was going to add, just in terms of our progress checks. So as the impact measures, and what do you think of because we've slightly changed the reporting structure. So what do you think of the testing model?
Last year, I think we only did one at the beginning and one at the end. Whereas this year, we've done one at the beginning. We've had one in the middle or around the middle area. And then we'll have a final one at the end, which allows us to kind of temperature check in the middle to make sure we're getting stuff right. And the one at the beginning is like a baseline test. We've had to be a little bit flexible with our program in the sense that some students have dropped out and some students have been put in. And we've worked closely, again, going back to the first question about communication, we've communicated that with PEXI. You've been flexible enough to say that we can't necessarily test them retrospectively, which I think wouldn't have helped anyway. It would have been a waste of time. But we can test them in the middle, and then we can see whether they've made progress from the middle to the end, which again has all been very useful. Whereas if you'd had students coming in late to it and you hadn't got a test until the end, I'm not sure you could have identified whether they'd made a mass amount of progress other than through in-school testing, or mock exams or end of unit tests that they do in class. But I think the 3 testing, start, middle, end, has been a really good improvement this year.
Have you had any complaints or any issues about the programme? And if you had, would you know how to follow them up with PEXI, where to go with it?
Absolutely. I know if there was any complaints. We've been really lucky. And I'm not just saying this because you're asking me this, but last year we had 2 excellent tutors, Roland and John.
Yeah.
And we'd like to have had them back actually this year. Particularly John, who was excellent. And we verbalised that to you at the time. But again, this year we've been really, really lucky with Arif and Sarah.
Good.
And they've been excellent tutors. But also Sarah left us because she got a job elsewhere. But then you also applied someone else in who was also very good. And we've just been very lucky with our tutors, and we've never felt shortchanged by what we've been given. We understand that it's there to support, and our mantra in school is that we use the catch-up program and PETXI really to support our students, and it can do no harm, and that is and it can do a lot of good, and it can do no harm, and therefore that's always been our mantra. Where it hasn't worked for a student, it doesn't do any harm. Where it does work, it adds an awful lot amount of value to student experience and their chances of doing well in school and catching up on really important bits of learning.
Brilliant, thank you, sir. Are you aware of PETXI's safeguarding procedures and DBS checks and so on? Has that been brought to your attention?
Absolutely. We've had we've also we have it from both ends. So you've got your end and we've had our end. So where at the beginning we asked for DBS checks, how that would all be done. You were very clear about it, how it's been done. When we've had a number of the tutors have been visited by I presume by quality assurance. And when they've come in, they've always supplied us with their DBS forms prior to coming in. I then send them on to our HR lead. So we've had no issues on that level.
Wonderful. Thank you. Have you had any feedback from other colleagues or from the children themselves about their experience of being on the programs with us?
We've had lots, and there's lots of, and you'll understand, I'd be very surprised if any school there's not been any negative feedback, because that's the way this program sort of runs. You just hit the nail on the head. Schools are built around relationships, in my opinion. And therefore, at the beginning of these types of programs, you get some students who are absolutely bought in, parents will buy in. And we've had this year, more than any other year, we've selected the right students. They've had a really great experience, and the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. You can see that in attendance to sessions. When we had our midterm assessment data back from PETXI, over 75% of our students are attending all their sessions regularly, which wasn't the case last year. And that's some of the ones that aren't attending. So you ask why the 25% aren't attending. Well, some of that is because of they're poorly. They're that sort of student that we unfortunately get behind. They are non-attenders or poor attenders, but they're in school. The way the program has been organised this year, we've built it around our own in-school program, whereas last year we had a provided program by you. Again, you were very flexible and allowing us to do that over 3 days. And the feedback from students and parents has been overwhelmingly positive. There's been the odd student who've said, I don't want to do that. And like I've just said earlier, we've said, we're not arguing with you about it. If you don't want to do it, we'll take you out. There's plenty of students who are queuing up to be given extra support. And as I said, from my perspective and from colleagues in school, the tutors this year and last year became part of our school community. They were more than welcome in the staff room. They felt part of the everyday kind of life at school. So I would say that we've been very lucky with the tutors. We've been very lucky that we've built a strong relationship with you and the team. You've always looked after us as well. We're nearing the end of our 15-week program this year, and we've been very happy with it. I think it's done a good job. We're about to review it in preparation for the trustees. But I think when we reviewed it initially with the trustees and set out and told them what we were setting out to do, they were very happy with what we were offering and how quickly we got it off the ground in terms of October. Whereas previous year it took a little bit of time to get it off the ground. That's the experience of working with a partner. So overwhelmingly, I think lots and lots of positives. And where we work again, and the aim is in future, if I'm involved, then we'd look to do it again next academic year, if not before, with the same organisation, because I think we've built good relationships and we know how each other works, and I think that fits in with what we're trying to do.
Perfect. That's that.